Hi everyone, this is Howard. Welcome to another Star Talk Tuesday, this Tuesday being July 14th, 2020. Now I'm going to cut straight to the chase. We got a spectacular week lined up for us observationally. I can only just keep my fingers crossed and whatever else that might bring us some luck in here to hope that the weather holds out and then we're able to see some of this really amazing things that are going to be going on in the sky. Now, amazing, these are things that happen. We got a combination of regular things happening, and we got some dynamic things. And so, what I mean by that, I won't be mysterious here. We have two planets at opposition this week, in particular Jupiter and Saturn, and I'll explain what I mean by opposition. Those are the sort of known things. Those are the things that happen every year. But now we have a dynamic thing, meaning something that we can't really plan for. They kind of just happen, kind of like relatives that show up. And maybe, perhaps some relatives you like when they surprise you, perhaps some others not so much. Now, comets in this context, they show up, and sometimes they put on a show, and sometimes they don't. I don't know if my audience will be old enough to remember the Gong Show. Every once in a while, you see something that looks really, really good. In most cases, watching comets are like watching the Gong Show, and that they're not always really easy to see. They're down low. I'm speaking from an observer's perspective, of course, and I don't mean to downplay the value of looking and observing at comets, but I know that we're always looking for and holding our breath to see that big wow comet. And if that's the metric we're using here, then most usually would be gonged right out of the Gong Show. But this comet maybe last and get to play its whole bit out. Or hoping that this becomes a naked eye comet and becomes visible even in the daytime sky, perhaps surpassing Comet McNaught from way back in, I think it was 2007. That comet was naked eye visible in the broad daylight sky, and that would be spectacular to see. That was a southern hemisphere comet, so you couldn't see that up here. Now, let's go ahead and accelerate the clock. Oh, really quickly, opposition. So this week, tonight, actually, at this moment, Jupiter is at opposition. So I want to explain what that means. Opposition just means, well, here, let me show you. We're looking at the Earth. Let's pull out a little bit further. And so there is the Earth with the Moon orbiting around it. And when the Moon shifts as it moves around in its orbit, we get a differing view of the Moon. Right now, as we look from the Earth, you'd see probably close to a little bit after the last quarter. But as the moon shifts around, I want you to imagine if the moon were right here, with the sun clearly in this direction, and the moon right here, then the Earth would be lined up right in between the sun and the moon. And when you looked at the moon, you'd have a full moon. You'd have a fully illuminated disk. Well, on July 14th, as we look further out, it's not the moon, it's Jupiter. So what you've got, if you drew a straight line between the sun, the Earth, and Jupiter, they would line up. Relatively speaking, as you look at Jupiter at any other day of the year, it wouldn't be a fully illuminated disk. On this evening, it's going to be a fully illuminated disk, meaning it's a full Jupiter. But we call it a fancy name. We call it at opposition because it's not going around the Earth, and so you don't see a new Jupiter nor first phase or first quarter or last quarter Jupiter. That's the context of the moon going around the Earth. But relatively speaking, when it gets to that position with putting the Earth between it and the sun, that's when you see the full moon, and that's basically what's happening here. Now, as you can see, just beyond it, let's go a little bit further out. Just beyond it is Saturn. So on the 20th, just 6 days later, the Earth will shift from here, and well, we'll just go ahead and change the day. Let's watch this go by. Watch the Earth move. We'll go a little bit further out. 1, 2, there we go, and 20. And as we get to here, you can see if you drew a straight line, it's a little bit harder because we're further out and the scales are harder to see, but you can see there's a straight line now. The Earth is lined up and moved, and it's a little bit further in its orbit, now lined up the Sun and Saturn. If we go to the Saturnian view, this is kind of cool, why I like Worldwide Telescope. We could change that up, and the Earth is lined up right there. So from the Earth perspective, there it is, on July 20th, we'd look out, and Saturn will have a fully illuminated disk, and just previously, Jupiter will have had a fully illuminated disk. Now, let's see that in our sky using Stellarium. So we go back to here, and let's go ahead and accelerate into the evening. Well, just a little bit further out. There goes the moon, and let's go ahead and accelerate to here. Whoop, not so fast, Howard. Let's get that sun a little bit further down as we look to the east. It gets a little bit darker. This is what you'll expect to see when Jupiter is opposition. Well, make the time go by a little bit faster, Howard. And give it another click. There we go. And there we go. As the sun is setting, this is on opposition. It's kind of like a seesaw with the Earth in the middle. As the sun goes down in the west, Jupiter at opposition is rising in the east, meaning that we get to see Jupiter all night long for the maximum amount of time as it is dark, meaning as the sun goes down, Jupiter's just coming up. You'll see it all night long. And as Jupiter is setting over here in the west, then the sun will be coming up in the east. We'll have the opportunity to see it for the longest period of time on this day. So there's Jupiter coming up out of the sky. Now, there's something coming up in a few days. But to frame that in context, I want you to see what it looked like this morning. That means I have to turn the clock back. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to just change the date and the time. We want to go back today. We want to go to about 3 o'clock in the morning. There we go. And you can see Jupiter, Mars is up there. Let's look over here at Jupiter. So this was about 3:30 in the morning. This morning. Now I know, if you're wondering why, it's because I want you to see in context what's going to be happening in a couple of days and see why it's so interesting. So we're going to zoom in on Jupiter. And there it is. It's already started. So there we go. So this was 3:30 this morning. Jupiter, it's looking spectacular. The great red spot was out, and there's its moon Io. Let's go back in time just a few moments here. I can go back minute by minute here. Let's bring my clock back. Let's bring this by minute. Bring the clock back, and there you can see as Io moves out of view. Now let's bring it forward again. So as you can see, as Io breaks the limb of Jupiter there, crosses over, you'll notice that there's a shadow right behind Io. And as we keep adding time and bring this to that magic moment, where is that? I think it's a little bit right after 4 o'clock. Let's just hurry up and get it there. Right around here, at 4:35 this morning, you had the great red spot and Io, and then Io's shadow. But what I want you to look at is that you really can't see Io's shadow because we're at opposition. The shadow is literally directly behind Io. And this would be a spectacular photograph if you were going to plan to do this. This would be potentially an award winner here if you could get a really good photograph of Jupiter doing that. But the shadow is behind Io here, and that was today, this morning. Now, let's show you what's going to happen. Let's go back again. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just make this 21 now. There we go. So this is 21:30. This is 9:30 in the evening tonight. So now we've seen, put it into context. We're looking at it out of the eastern sky now. South, there we go. Jupiter and Saturn coming up. And as we look tonight, you can see that, well, we got a little bit of a different view here. Now as we move one day ahead, change my date. So this is what we can look forward to. On the evening of July 15th, look at where Io is again. So this is 9:30 in the evening. This is on July 15th. This is what you can look forward to. So we just saw what it looked like this morning, and the shadow was directly behind Io. Now the evening of the 15th, the great red spot is about to turn out of view here. But as we add some time here, if I could get the clock to show up, there we go. Watch as we add minutes. Io will cross the limb again. And now look where the shadow is. And we'll get this into a nice prominent position. Let's get it to right about there. And as we zoom in now the shadow of Io looks like an Oreo cookie that somebody maybe took a bite out of. Now, because the Earth has shifted a little bit, now we're seeing it from a different perspective, and now Io's shadow is not completely blocked. Typically, and I've seen a lot, you see a lot of images of Io with its shadow preceding or trailing behind it, depending on the Earth's position relative to the Sun. On this particular day, Io is close enough. This is so close after opposition that it's just blocking it a little bit, looking like a cookie with a bite taken out of it. Now, on this particular evening, this is the 15th. Let's go ahead and bring this out a little bit further. This will be easier if I do this. And let's bring our view out this way and look out to the northwestern sky. And this is 10 o'clock in the evening, so I'm going to bring this back a bit. Now this is something that we're going to see changing from day to day. So where are you, Comet Neowise? Where are you? Of course, it's going to make a fool of me right now. I'm going to go ahead and just look for it. Let's do C-2020 F3 Neowise. There we go. So there it is. So now, as we add some time here, oops, July 11th, of course, because that's why I've got this. I was meant to go forward. There we go. Here we are. There's Comet Neowise. So that is tonight. Let's go ahead and bring this up a little bit higher. So this will be later on the week. We'll bring this onto the day that Saturn is at opposition. So on the 20th, July 20th. I apologize for my brain lock there. So 10 minutes after 9, Comet Neowise will be high enough above, and there you can see it, above the northwestern sky. It is sinking. It's trailing down into the horizon, but this is long enough after sunset, and keeping our fingers crossed here, it will be dark enough, give enough contrast, and help boost its your ability to see it. Now, if it perhaps lives up to expectation, it will already be bright enough that you'll be able to see it in the with the naked eye in the sky. Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed again. Maybe it'll be even bright enough to see in the daytime sky. That would be a truly spectacular thing. With these comets, like I say, they're kind of more miss than hit. So we'll see. Neowise, we're counting on you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've run out of time. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.